For those who are raging of the fact that what the character of Ki Adi Mundi, if I say that correctly, said in the prequels, which the Phantom Menace is now claiming it's broken lore because of the events in Acolyte episode 4. I have a tip for you. Maybe what he said was true from a certain point of view. This is the review of Champions, and I'm your host, Grandmaster. With me is a powerful panel made up of the finest champions Sakaar has to offer. Let me introduce them to you. Voice only, sitting on his throne room in Hades, Mr. Lord Deathman. How are you doing this fine evening?
I'm doing well, thanks.
It's great to hear. We have on camera Mr. Taylor first. How are you?
I'm good.
Fantastic. And last but certainly not least, showing his beautiful face, shaved, very clean. Here's it. Merv, how are you, man?
I'm fantastic and a little bit colder.
Well, you look great, man. You look great. It suits you. Today we're going to talk about episode 4 called Day of the Acolyte. But before we do, I want to ask you all to help us out. Like our video, share our video, subscribe to our channel, and join our forum. Go to Sakaar.freeforms.net, set up that account, and if you want, you can join us in our podcast or reviews. Consider this your final warning. After this point, we have spoilers. So if you haven't seen this week's episode, go do that first and then check out our review. We return to present day in this week's episode. May has set out to kill Kel Naka, the Wookiee Jedi that was part of the 4 Jedi we saw recruiting Osha in the previous episode. And does she succeed? Well, we will check it with our champions, what they thought. And I'm going to start with you, Merv, today. Merv, I want to have your quick thoughts on episode 4, Day of the Acolyte.
Disappointing.
Okay, moving on. Taylor.
Yeah, pretty much. There was a little bit of, I don't know, even the stuff that the episode you were expecting from the episode, it didn't quite deliver for me. And then there was a long walk through the woods that didn't really amount to a whole lot of entertainment on my end. So a little bit disappointing. Yeah, there were some cool things, but it just never capitalized on any of them.
Mm-hmm. Well, Taylor, did you like episode 4 of the Acolyte?
There were a lot of things in this episode that I liked. As an episode itself, I mostly liked it. However, as part of the show and advancing the story, didn't do a whole lot. And there's some lazy writing, which again I can actually look past that if you give me action adventure excitement, but they really didn't.
Okay. I can see where this is going. I saved the best for last. People, Lord Deathman, I saw your comments on the board already. Don't walk out on us, but what did you think of the Acolyte episode 4?
Yeah, if not for my obligations here with the Podcast of Champions, I would have given up on this show. Honestly, I don't think it has much to offer to me as a Star Wars fan. I think they're wasting what should have been a really great premise. I think there's a lot of lazy, and not just lazy, but frankly, stupid writing. The stories just seem to go in a kind of meandering way that isn't really amounting to anything. It isn't adding much to Star Wars lore, so I'm not really learning anything or getting a great expansion on any of the concepts. I will say that there have been some interesting ideas that people have kind of bought up and then quickly disposed of that could have gone somewhere for this series. But yeah, mainly I feel the series is just at the halfway point. I believe we are at the halfway point. It's just a lot of wasted potential.
Yeah, well, I totally agree with all of you, actually. There were some moments I really did enjoy, but overall, disappointing was the word I hear. I agree with that. Taylor, okay, before you start with all the things wrong with the episode, Normally I do it the other way around, but now I want to hear what was actually good in this episode.
Yeah, there were some really beautiful, um, what I believe were actual location shots, the wide shots of the countryside and them, walking in the mountains and the woods and everything. Those were really gorgeous, actually. And then when they cut in close, and they were obviously on a sound stage, but that's okay because Star Trek does that too. And they were really nicely designed sound stages, and they looked really cool. And I liked the adding the wildlife, that insect creature, just to give it a little bit of lived in flavor of the world that they're on.
Mhm.
I liked all that. I liked that little tracker alien creature. What was his name? Beasley or Basil, something like that.
Basil.
Basil. Okay, Basil.
Basil.
I liked him. I liked his introduction. I liked at the end when the Sith Lord appeared, and I was really ready for something to happen. But it didn't. I'm hoping that as soon as the next episode starts, we're going to see the pickup right where we left off. Of course, we know what's going to happen. He's going to kill all of the red shirt Jedis that we don't know their names, and the Jedis who have names that we know will survive somehow, and then it'll go from there. Um, let's see. I liked some of it. There was a lot of walking and talking, which if they're saying something worthwhile, that's okay. I actually liked a little bit of the dialogue between May and her companion, Wyam, or whatever his name is, the druggist guy, the apothecary, at first. And then some of their dialogue was just silly. And I don't know if they're trying to fool us or if they are really being that obvious that he's the guy behind all this, because he was really sus, and he said some really pointed things that make you go, uh-huh.
Well,
He's probably the guy in the black helmet. But again, maybe they're trying to misdirect us with that, and it's actually somebody else. As far as the stuff I didn't like, well, the Wookiee Jedi that we've been talking about for 3 episodes dies off screen. Silly. Just a wasted opportunity there. May, who's for the last 16 years, her one and only purpose in life has been to kill these 4 Jedi, suddenly says, yeah, I don't have to do this anymore. I'm done with this. I'm going to turn good, turn myself in, turn in my Sith Lord Master, and it's all going to be gone. With no build up to it, no indication of it. I get that she said, realizing that Osha is alive changes everything, but they don't really explain how. And I'm not even sure how she thought she was dead, other than she wasn't at the crying tree when she went to go look for her, because she fell off that bridge, and I assume she waited there a while for Osha to fall, and she never did. So you might have assumed she was actually alive. But I guess since she didn't show up at their meeting place, okay, so she assumed she was dead. But it felt really forced and really strange that all of a sudden, oh yeah, I'm good now, and I don't care about killing these 2 Jedi that have been my entire motivation for living for the last however many years. What else? I don't like to do this because I say it myself that we should not have expectations before we actually see something. But I admit to being guilty on this one, because when I heard about the show is called The Acolyte, and it's going to be told from the point of view of the Sith. I think they said that. I don't think I made that up. It might have been headcanon. I don't know. But I think they said it's going to be told from the point of the Sith, or a story about the Sith. And in my head, I pictured like something inspired by film noir, with something evil growing within the Jedi Order, and hushed secret meetings down in the deepest, darkest tunnels of the Jedi Temple, and secret meetings in the dark alleys of Coruscant, and maybe a lone Jedi who's acting like a detective who's trying to figure out what's going on and what's happening and try to solve the mystery. But no, we're just getting beautiful, sunny planets and pretty people, just kind of walking around. And other than the guy in the black helmet, who, I mean, unless they give it someone we've never even seen before, it's one of 2, maybe 3 people, and if it's the third one, then it makes absolutely no sense. So it's one of two people at this point. So there's not really much other than, and we've known everything else that's been going on. So yeah, I just like Lord Deathman said, there's there's just not much storytelling here, and I don't know what has caused it. Now the lady who's the showrunner, I forget her name, Leslie Headland or something like that. Supposedly she was also the showrunner on Russian Doll, which I've never seen, but I've heard a lot of people say is really
that's an excellent
good.
show. Excellent show.
Okay.
Really well written, really well produced. Excellent show. When I actually watched that show because she was appointed the showrunner for this show, The Acolyte, and I was blown away by how good it actually was. It was really funny and really well written, cleverly written, and if you look at The Acolyte, it's like Through the Looking Glass. It's the total opposite. It's really terrible compared to that.
And it feels like to me that that tells me that she doesn't care about this show. I don't want to put words in her mouth and try to get inside of her head, but it just seems to me like they're Star Wars fans, they'll watch anything. This is just silly kiddie stuff. I'll hire a couple of my friends to write it so that they can have a writing credit on their resume, even if they don't have talent. And Disney will pay me. That's kind of what it feels like to me. If she's really that capable, doesn't feel like she's putting in the effort here on this one.
Yeah, or
that's my take.
Or she just misread the room. That's also possible. She has a concept that just doesn't work for Star Wars. But maybe. You know what? We're still halfway. We shouldn't get ahead of ourselves. That's what I always say. Judge what you get, and they may still turn it around. Maybe it will be brilliant at the end. But yeah, every week that hope gets less from my end. But anyway, Lord Deathman, I'm going to challenge you. I want to hear something you liked about episode 4, and then you can tear it apart.
Wow. That's a real challenge, man. Goodness, something that I liked about episode 4.
Don't say it was over at a certain moment. So then that was a good thing.
Right. I get that the clock is ticking here. Yikes. This is really tough. I have to say, I will agree with Taylor that some of the sets and the locations do look really great on this show. So you can kind of see where some of the production budget is going. So I will say that they had some good looking locales. How does that qualify?
Sure. Merv is now thinking he's coming for me as well. Yes, I am. But tear it apart, please. Well,
yeah.
but that's what you're going to do anyway.
And I'm not here to tear this apart. Again, I'm not joining the legions of anti-fans that are using this as fodder for a political agenda and talking about the different types of politics that are or are not unfolding in the show. I'm really evaluating this show on its merits, which I as a piece of entertainment and storytelling. How plausible is it? Am I engaged with it? Does it make any sense? Those are the criteria I'm using, to be clear. And the biggest problem that I have with this episode, as well as the show, is what is this story about, right? As Taylor eloquently articulated, when we heard the title of this show, and I agree with him, I don't think it's headcanon to say that we were kind of promised a story that would be told from the opposition's point of view, namely the Sith, and that we would kind of see what their doctrine is, how they arrived at their philosophy. And I was like, wow, that's an interesting premise for Star Wars, which is usually told from the point of view of the good guys. So turning that on its head and seeing the journey of someone who is becoming a Sith acolyte would have been interesting. But we've got nothing like that in this particular show. I don't know, is this about a sister looking for another sister? Is this about someone who's being indoctrinated into a cult of the Sith? What is this show about? I really am struggling to try and figure it out on the whole thematically with 4 episodes having gone by. I found this episode to be a meandering search for an objective that they clearly set up at the beginning of the episode, which had absolutely no payoff, right? So May and Corlin, I believe is the name of the apothecary character. They're wandering the forest and they're having these exchanges, and they're looking for Kalnaka, as are the Jedi contingent, also wandering the forest looking for Kalnaka. And then they pay off, or don't pay off rather, with a corpse of a Wookiee in his Aeron chair after he made some stew. He got killed off screen. I mean, I think only the Coen brothers are allowed to get away with that. If we all think back to No Country for Old Men, that's the only off-screen death that you were like, okay, I buy it.
Yeah.
Llewellyn, spoilers, Llewellyn died off screen.
Yeah.
But Kalnaka, you had an opportunity to put a lightsaber in the hands of a Wookiee who is a Jedi and pit him against a Sith master, and you chose to kill him off screen and have him just, sitting in his chair as if he probably got surprised, right? That says to me, you don't get this. You don't get Star Wars. You don't get what fans of Star Wars are looking for, the moments that would mean something to us, how we imagine this mythology. You're just, if that was your idea of brilliant storytelling in the Star Wars universe, you're failing. So, I found the Basil Tracker, whatever their pronouns are, don't care. It makes an annoying sound. It kind of screams, and I'm like, please don't do that again. It was like listening to the goats in Thor: Love and Thunder. The first time you heard it, it was kind of funny, but then when Taika wants to do it 4 or 5 times throughout the movie, you're like, okay, this is grating, right? Like, don't do it anymore. I found a lot of the dialogue that they exchanged to be simpering, simplistic Zen homily. Someone says something about facing the loss. I think it was May or Osha talking to the Padawan character, the Daphne Keene character, and they're talking about loss or something like that. And then she kind of says this symmetrical. You're not defined by what you lose, but how you survive. What are we talking about here? That makes no sense. And there were at least 2 or 3 of these kind of let's make a high-minded Aesop's fable kind of exchange like this that people are going to think is real deep, when if you just look at it even superficially, you're like, that's nonsense, right? So they're not even doing a good job in terms of the writing. And I don't want to the millennials who are listening to this program, please don't feel like I am singling you out, but May does the most millennial thing I could think about, which is try to quit her job as a Sith acolyte. You know what? I'm not even going to tell the master I'm quitting. I'm just kind of going to soft quit and get captured. And then bro won't know that I've kind of given up on this whole Sith acolyte thing, because you know what? I looked at the benefits package for the job, and it's not quite what I thought it was going to be. I didn't quite read the fine print carefully. So I got to find a way to back out of this job. It was so lame, like you're halfway through the quest. And granted, he gave you a pretty stupid assignment in terms of trying to kill a Jedi without a weapon, because we see that has to pay off in a way that nothing in Star Wars has ever paid off, when we actually see how it goes down, right? You will kill a Jedi without a weapon, right? Okay, you don't have a weapon. A Jedi won't attack you. What? And even if it does like pay off in a way that's like incredible, and we're like, oh my God, you're like it was, we solved how the pyramids were built. What does it have to do with the story? What is it going to mean to the overall story of this, that someone made up a cute little paradoxical problem for this final lesson for the acolyte? The show is just failing. It is just from Kilnaka's death the very silly philosophizing that they do throughout the whole thing, it's just really lame. The show still can't find its footing tonally. Sometimes we're looking at Basil screaming and hopping up and down and hyperventilating, and then at the end of the episode, you got a Death Lord in the vein of true Death Lords coming out all in black with his red lightsaber, flicking people away. He can't even see anything. So this guy's blind, and they're making another quota, right? We got a blind Sith Sith Lord in it to with all the LGBTQ characters. And again, I'm okay with blind people. I'm okay with LGBT community members, but it does feel like that Sith Lord jokingly ticked off a box in terms of like having no eyes or whatever. So I know I'm being hard on the show, and that's really because now I care. After having seen something like Andor, where it was so beautifully crafted thematically, it was so well shot. It elevated all of Star Wars. That's really the pinnacle of it for me in terms of what you can do with taking Star Wars to another level. This just feels like a regressive, retrograde step back. This is poor storytelling. So I hope they can rescue it in the back half. I wouldn't say that I'm not going to watch it, but again, if this was just something I was just doing for my own entertainment, I probably would have just checked out by now.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know how to respond to that. But anyway, I'm going to go to Merv. Merv, you had some time while Lord Deathman was ranting, and justifiably so, by the way. I totally agree with him 100%. But still, you had some time to think about what did you like about episode 4 of The Acolyte?
There were a few things. Outside of the screaming, I didn't mind the character Basil. I thought he was kind of a cute Star Wars alien, which is like a necessity, I guess, for these shows. They always got to throw one in there.
Take the necessary Star Wars.
Oh yeah, I mean it's like a core part of the foundation of Star Wars. So I didn't mind them. Again, aside from the screaming, which was mildly annoying, but there were a few shots, outside of the widescreens, but a few like cinematography shots that, for like specifically the one that I thought of first was whenever Darth Smiley or whatever his name is floats down behind Osha, and nobody else knows he's there yet. If the scene would have paid off, that would have been a really cool, like, he's creeping up on them. He doesn't, I thought that was really cool, like over the shoulder shot. I also, again, if a scene would have paid off differently, it would have been good, or maybe in a different context. But the shot whenever May runs in and she's like Master Kalnaka or whatever, and he's like sitting there kind of slumped. It's we've seen that shot a million times, but I did think it was done okay. Like it was, the panning around and seeing him dead, obviously simultaneously, while I acknowledge it was a good shot, I was like, how could you do this? You've been building up this Wookiee fight for 3 episodes. It felt like, like this is the only thing that we were looking forward to here, and then they didn't pay it off. But the shot itself, in the kind of mood and atmosphere around that shot, I thought was pretty well done. I didn't hate all of Osha and Jeki's, I think her character name is, dialogue here. It really felt like they were trying to push something of like character development between these two characters, which I welcome any character development between these characters, because I feel like we don't really have much of any. Like, I get a little bit from Saul and Osha, like in earlier episodes, but I almost get nothing. I don't even know. They didn't even acknowledge that there were like 6 other Jedi here. Like, they're just literally background extras. So yeah, they're dead for sure. If they're not dead, they're the luckiest red shirts I've ever seen. But yeah, I guess on to the negatives. I mentioned on the board,
were the
but
positives.
Yeah, those were the positives. It's a little bit kind of, there were some almost really good, but there were, and as I was sitting here thinking, I upped it from 3 to 4 moments where I just kind of threw my arms up in angst at like decisions that were made on this show. The biggest one by far, we'll just start with that one, is May's total 180 out of nowhere. I'm going to kill this Jedi, the 3rd one out of 4. Nope. I'm going to go turn myself in, and I'm going to, reconcile with my sister, who literally a day ago tried to kill me on some other planet. But I know that she's alive now, and I've decided that my lifelong revenge tour is just, it's not really worth it. Like
somehow her sense returns.
Somehow she turned good, and they did absolutely nothing to really lead us into that. They didn't show like an introspective moment. There was a little bit of minutia, like in the dialogue between her and Kamir, that you can read through the lines a little bit, but it wasn't nearly enough to justify that, justify that drastic total 180 of a character turn. Like that literally just felt like it was out of nowhere. The second biggest one is the Wookiee, not having a Wookiee fight, which I already mentioned. But again, this is the one like revenge moment that we've had hyped up a little bit. Kamir mentioned it in like the episode 2. He's like, oh, if you think this one's hard, wait till you got to fight a Wookiee. And then he mentions it again here where like, you got to fight a Wookiee. And then the whole like, you're going to have to fight one of these guys, one of the 2 that's left without any weapons. It's like, well, are you going to try to fight the Wookiee without a weapon? Because that feels like a dangerous scenario. So I was, like everyone else who sat down to watch this episode, I was really excited to see however this was going to resolve, not expecting that they would resolve it off screen without the character that you're following and never show any of it and just show a steaming pile of chest hair, which could also have been from whatever food he was cooking. It didn't look like the best meal ever, so I just assume he died of heartburn, actually, because anything else just doesn't make any sense. So that was the second biggest thing. Third biggest thing, I was like, okay, you didn't pay off the Wookiee scenario, but Darth Smiley or whatever is floating down. Okay, maybe we'll get this Jedi versus Sith or whatever this guy is. And he force blasts him. He draws his lightsaber. Everyone draws their lightsaber. All right, real excited. Roll credits. I was just like, it was like, finally we get something, and then we get nothing. And it just goes to credits. And that would have been an okay situation if you had paid anything else off at any point in this episode. But it was like the last straw for this episode where it was just like, you know what, this sucks, like it was just too much, too little, and nothing, like in the end nothing happened this episode other than some people got pushed around, and that's pretty much it. Well, I mean, big stuff happened character wise, which again is unsatisfactory because nothing was built up and nothing was really paid off. But the fourth one that I was thinking about while I was just sitting here listening to everyone else talk is that Osha also tried to quiet quit. She was just like, I found out my sister's alive. You guys are going to go track her down? I'm probably just going to fly off. My sister, who I thought was dead for the last 16 years, I'm just going to go back to being like a droid tech or whatever on a spaceship for the Trade Federation. Like, she's got her own stuff going on, and I don't really want to be involved. I'm like, this doesn't make any sense as a sibling, as a character, as a moment here. It doesn't do anything.
To be fair, I want to point out they were not the best of friends while they were young. So fair. I can imagine you think like, that bitch is still alive.
Yeah. That's fair. But then if that's the case, then Osha might be the actual villain of the show, because like I don't know. It's just it seemed like it came out of nowhere, and it didn't do anything for the story. It didn't do anything for the character at this point, because within 5 minutes she's back on board with the group going to the planet. So I'm like, what was the point of this other than to show me that she has no purpose as a character? I don't even know what we're like. And I up till that moment, I was kind of liking the Osha character about as much as any character in the show. Like it's like her and Saul were like the two characters that I really somewhat enjoyed. But that really cemented her as like just irrelevant to this plot. Like she literally was trying to leave it. And then to have May also try to leave it, it was like both sides of this coin they don't even want to be in the show. So why should I care about this plot if the characters in the plot don't even care about the plot? You know what I mean? Like that's how I started to feel the more I thought about it. And it's just I'm not thinking better the longer it goes away from watching this episode, the more I'm like, just frustrated at the level of content. And I did not come into this show with high expectations. Most of my expectations are pretty much set from like episode 1 in hopes that, they'd tell a good story and stuff like that. I didn't really know what to expect from this show. But in episode 1, whenever you give me good combat and maybe it's a revenge story, and I'm not really sure where the good side of this is going to detective maybe, but I feel like we've got nothing that pays any of that off, and we're halfway through, and I don't know. It just feels like they stretched out like a nothing of an idea here.
Yeah, they had so much potential. A political thriller. You can make it a detective story. You can make it like siblings try have a confrontation with each other or anything, and we get nothing like that at all. It's really nothing. It's like a walk in the woods, literally. Lord Deathman, you had a follow-up.
I did, and it really, as Merv and his wonderful breakdown of this episode went, he kind of addressed my follow-up. What I will say is that I imagine that in the writer's room when they were trying to give the log line for this episode, it would have been the bad guys and the good guys take a walk through the woods and find a corpse. And then a guy in a cave shows up, right? Like that's really the bottom line of this episode. And I feel that I want to build on what Merv was saying, in that, there are a lot of things that have emotional weight that are happening, supposedly happening in this series. Long lost sisters are being united or reunited in conflict, but then we kind of get this passive, both of them want to quiet quit their respective roles in the series that are supposed to be informing the narrative. And I just have to say, nobody is giving a performance that matches the emotional weight of the circumstances that they are in terms of having not seen your sister, feeling anger towards her responsibility for having killed their mothers. Nobody is behaving in a way that's commensurate with feeling that emotional weight. When I always point to Revenge of the Sith as one of the best sort of drivers of conflict in the Star Wars series. We had, before Revenge of the Sith came out, we had heard about the conflict between Anakin and Obi-Wan since probably The Empire Strikes Back. Lucas had been talking about this, confrontation that they had at a castle on a lava planet. And then when we finally see it in Revenge of the Sith, the acting, the emotional, like, people are like, well, that's not really even a great lightsaber fight at the end of Revenge of the Sith. It's kind of the choreography is all over the place, and it's just really fast and quick cutting. But the emotional ferocity there in that fight between those two, as people who were formerly brothers and united under this banner of the Jedi, who are now under different sort of belief systems, the anger is there, the resentment is there, the emotions are there in Revenge of the Sith, and they're palpable. This, I don't know if they are getting ready to fill out job applications at Home Depot, or if they're upset that they've been separated from each other for umpteen years and have unresolved issues. They are not communicating that emotionally in any way.
Taylor, if you were Osha, wouldn't you be hopping mad at your sister because she killed your family, your mothers, left you with no choice but to join the Jedi, even though that's what you wanted at that point in your life?
Yeah, she would be extremely upset. She'd want some type of communication from her to find out why she did it, or how she did it, or if she actually did it. I mean, we still don't know what really happened there. I really still cannot believe that little fire that she started in the hallway caused the massive explosion and killed everybody in the place.
Yeah,
she didn't. Oh, my sister's alive now. Well, that's surprising. I thought she was dead. Anyway, I'm gonna go back to work.
Yeah,
and then Saul stops her at the airport and we need your help. So you want me to join the Jedi again? No, not officially, but yeah, okay, I'll do it.
Yeah. And what's that about citizen not carrying weapons? I remember Han Solo killing some Yato. He shot actually first. So yeah, I mean,
Well, no, I've already got this figured out because I've been watching UFC. Okay, if you need to kill a Jedi without a weapon, you rear naked choke, and you choke them out. Okay, you can do it with a Wookiee. You can do it with anybody.
mm,
All right, so Ash just has to rear naked choke, and then you kill him without a weapon.
mm.
The other thing I got is the guy, the Sith guy with the helmet. Now, when did that become a thing? Because Darth Vader wore a helmet to breathe. Kylo Ren wore a helmet because he idolized Darth Vader and wanted to look sort of like him. Right? Darth Maul didn't wear a helmet. Count Dooku didn't wear a helmet. Palpatine didn't wear a helmet. What's the rules about these Siths have to wear a helmet or they don't have to wear a helmet?
Mm. I don't know. Maybe he drove a motorcycle to work. I don't know. But
Yeah, if we see him on a speeder, we'll know.
yeah, exactly. I know. But, no, but but it's obvious. It's the what Taylor said. It's the apothecary, right? Or did I say that correctly? But anyway, the guy, the May's helper. I think he's actually her boss.
Yeah, I mean, some of the things he said during their walk was like, yeah, that Jedi who seems fond of you. What was his name again? Saul?
Yeah, I think there's.
But you know how the master is. I haven't seen his face either. He collects people.
I think there's even a moment where he stumbles over his words and he's like, I mean our master, it's just like
Exactly.
so obvious that the fact that she didn't obviously ask a question makes me wonder, like, do we expect her to be dumb and not realize this, or is that why she did a 180? Like, I don't know. They just doing a really bad job of keeping us informed of what the characters are actually deciding to do.
And I've heard people say, oh, he can't be the Sith Lord because the Sith Lord would never accidentally walk into that trap and get caught. Well, he did that on purpose because he wanted her. He had already gone. They were separated for a little while. He went and killed the Wookiee, came back, wanted her to go and find the Wookiee. So he stepped into her trap so that she would continue on. And then he could get changed and come back and kill the Jedi.
Yeah. It's quite obvious, yeah. But maybe they surprise us. You never know. That leaves us with nothing to do but a rating. And, well, I have a feeling we may add everything up to, and we get to an 8 or something. We will see. I'll start with you, Merv. What's your number for this week?
Well, I was going to go with an 8, just because I think it improved. It's I'll give it a 3, which is the same as last week, but I might even be more disappointed with this episode. But I don't. It's pretty low.
Okay. Taylor.
I'll give this episode a 5 for great scenery, for Osha getting force pushed in a really cool way. Just like, get out of my way. And yeah. And that giant insect getting sliced in half with a lightsaber. That was kind of cool. So yeah, 5.
Okay. The bar set really high now. Lord Deathman, can I have your number?
Yeah, it's a 2. And I think that's being generous. I think that this really didn't add much at all to the story. If anything, it kind of set it backwards. The slugs on the trees and the nice scenery, nice looking, absolutely added nothing to the story. It's like we just wanted to put a cool creature in there that Saul could cut in half with his lightsaber, and then somebody else could talk about how I got somebody killed. I mean, yeah, I'm struggling. Man. They really need to throw me a lifeline in the next episode. My rating for this one is a 2.
Yeah, last week I was generous with a 5 because I still had hope, but even Obi-Wan can't help me now. I'm going for a 3 out of 10. It's just not good, and I don't mind characters from which gender, which or relationship status or religion, or I don't give a rat's ass about all of that. Just give me good stories, and I'm not getting that, and that's why I'm going for a 3 out of 10. Just to be clear, we're not toxic. We're just very disappointed. that will conclude this week's review of Champions for episode 4 of the Acolyte. We hope you have enjoyed our discussion today, even though we were not our positive selves. If you did, help us out. Like this video, share our review, and subscribe to our channel. And join our forum at Sakar, sakar.freeforms.net. We would love it if you do that. Next week, we're going to be a day later than normal due to other obligations. And that leaves me with nothing to say. Thank you all, also on behalf of our champions, and wish the force to be with you always. Bye.